Well, as the U.S. gets ready to celebrate its 250th birthday, each month we're going to look back at some of the historical events, people, and places here in Siouxland. It is called We the People. Tonight, most of you are familiar with the Indianapolis 500. The first Indy 500, it took place in 1911, but shortly after that, on July 4th of 1914, Sioux City hosted one of the most prestigious and longest auto races in the world as well. Sioux City's so-called Mini Indy was the idea of a local Cadillac dealer, Charles Wycott, who attended the first Indianapolis 500. Local businesses and the Sioux City Automobile Club and Speedway Association were formed to support the idea. They decided to build a track in what's now an area of North Sioux City known as Grainfield Airport. It took 2 years to build the grandstand and the track. The 4th of July Classic car race in 1914 attracted some of the greatest names in the sport, including pioneer race car driver Barney Oldfield, who was the first man to drive a car 60 miles an hour on a circular track.
So the cheapest tickets for this particular race were $1.50. The expensive tickets, front row, in the center in the grandstands, were $20 a ticket. Now that is a substantial sum of money in 1914.
But the victory went to little-known driver Eddie Rickenbacker with an average speed of a little more than 79 miles an hour. The purse, a princely sum of $10,000.
When you consider that the average house at this time to have been built here in Sioux City, say, would have been between about $1,500 and $2,500.
Rickenbacker later went on to become a World War I fighter ace who earned the Medal of Honor. The only Sioux Cityan to qualify for the race was local auto dealer Harry Wetmore. The building that housed his dealership still stands next to the former KCAU studios. A crowd of nearly 50,000 overwhelmed the community, most coming from outside of the city.
There were as many as 10 people sharing hotel rooms in downtown. Wealthy individuals from across the country, they came here on their private railroad cars, and they stayed along the trackage that had been built alongside of the Sioux City Speedway racetrack.
Another 300 was held in 1915, but race number 2 would become the last big race in Sioux City's history.
The whole race was plagued with financial difficulty, and I don't think the 1915 race was as nearly successful as the 1914 race.
As we mentioned, the first Indianapolis 500 held in 1911 with an estimated 80,000 people attending. The average speed that day was a little more than 74 miles an hour. Now, Indy drivers, they average, get this now, 166 miles an hour.